What strategy did I use to determine the publishing timeline for 8 indie novels? Let's find out. Hey there, welcome to the Indie Author Studio. My name is Hannah, and today we're talking about publishing independently and deciding when to publish, when to set that publishing date, when to set up pre-orders, when to do your cover reveal, and all that goes into all of it. So, let's dive in. First of all, I want to note that every author does this a little bit differently. This is just what I've done and what has worked for me. So, the very first thing is I don't decide on a publishing date until after the developmental edits are done. Or at the very least, not until I have the feedback from my developmental editor or from my beta readers if I have a lot of beta readers and I'm not hiring a developmental editor. I go into more detail of that in this video, but in the meantime, once I have the feedback from my editor or my beta readers and I can figure out what the book needs and what the work is going to look like for the next however long, then I can get a ballpark figure for my release date. So once those developmental edits are done, or I can see what needs to be done and I know how long they're going to take, the first thing I do is I allow 2 months for line edits and formatting. And this might be a little different for you depending on the editor you're working with and if you're doing the formatting yourself, etc., etc. But in my case, I allow 2 months for line editing and formatting. And then when the formatting is done, I also allow 2 months for ARC readers to receive and read the book. So that's 4 months. So if I'm standing at the end of developmental edits and I can see, okay, 2 months for line edits and formatting, 2 months for ARC readers, then I'm going to put the release date at the end of those 4 months. Now, in some cases, I announce a release day like 6 months in advance. And that, again, just depends on where I'm at with the developmental edits and what I can see is going to be needed. Or I just give myself like a bunch of extra time. And that's something I really encourage you to do, especially if it's your first book or your second book. You want to give yourself that extra time. You don't want to have to push a release date later if you can possibly help it. And you also you don't want to underestimate the work, because every step of this process is a lot of work and the marketing is a lot of work, and so all of it just takes a lot of time and you don't want to underestimate and put your release date too early. But my rule of thumb is 2 months for line editing and formatting, 2 months for ARC readers, and the release date goes at the end of that time span. Usually I'll even have a ballpark figure for a release date before the developmental edits are fully done, but I rarely announce it unless I know exactly what needs to be done with developmental edits and I have my line editor lined up and it's all scheduled. Then I might announce it even earlier. But again, just take your time and don't underestimate. So now, when do you schedule things like cover reveal, pre-orders? When do you start getting ARC readers? So let's talk about that for a second. And if you want to go more in depth with your street team and ARC team building, I have the first link in the description set up for that. I have a printable ebook with tons of information on this topic. So I'm just going to touch on like the timelines here for this. So it varies a lot, but generally I like to get my street team and ARC readers about 2 to 6 months before release. And I know that's a huge gap, but it depends on the book. If I'm releasing like the third book in a series, like I am right now with my Portal Fantasy series, I am not going to put quite as much intention into the marketing of that third book. I'm going to market the first book more. So that does reflect in the timeline of the cover reveal and pre-orders, etc. However, in general, street team signups first, ARC signups second. You can do both at the same time. That's totally fine. But what I recommend is that you put those signups out there, then you close the form when you have a number of people, and then with ARC readers, at the very least, reopen the form later if you have gotten those signups like 6 months early or something like that. Reopen the signups before you send out the ARC copies, just to give a few more people a chance to hop on there, unless you already have, a bunch of readers and you don't need more, which is awesome. But you want to give yourself enough time where you can reopen those forms, those signups, if you need to bring on more people. Now, a cover reveal is also going to be done 2 to 6 months before release day. You want to make sure you have enough time to get your street team signed up and on board before the cover reveal, of course, so just plan accordingly. But 2 months before, 6 months before, you want to do the cover reveal and pre-order launch at the same time. Very important to open pre-orders at the same time you do your cover reveal. Only exception to that would be if somebody is doing a Kickstarter campaign. You're probably going to do your cover reveal before the Kickstarter launches, so that would be a little bit different. But in general, you really want to open pre-orders at the same time you do the cover reveal. So 2 months before release date to 6 months before release date. Some authors even do it a year out. You can. Maybe you have a series and you want to open pre-orders for the second or third book really early. But in general, you're not going to do it a year early. Some authors have pre-orders for multiple books at one time. You might find that's something you do later on in your author career, but generally at the beginning, you're not going to do it that way. So if you have a finished book right now and you're thinking about publishing and you think it's ready to publish, but you're looking at all these things and thinking, this is going to take a really long time. It is worth taking the extra time to market, to get the street team, to get the ARC readers. Even if your book is already ready to publish, it's worth taking at least a few months to concentrate on marketing street team and ARC readers. And definitely check out my ebook on this topic as I go into a lot more detail on the street team and ARC readers, as well as some very important cautions and warnings working with ARC readers that you will want to check out. And finally, plan on 1 month before release day, you really start ramping up the marketing. And maybe it's, a month and a half, maybe it's 3 weeks, just depending on you and your book. But in general, a month before release day, you really start ramping up the marketing for that book. You start pushing pre-orders a lot more. And I'm just going to recommend that you give yourself a scheduled break after the book releases. Give yourself some time to rest and recoup. Maybe you even take a break from marketing altogether. Whatever it is, give yourself that time to recoup, because there's a lot of energy and adrenaline and work that goes into releasing a book, a lot that goes into the release week and release day. There's communication with your street team and troubleshooting. So just try to schedule a break after release day where you can just rest, recoup, and hopefully spend time appreciating the success of your launch. If this video has helped you, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will try to answer them.